Alright, so there is a comic book series called Grimjack. It came out a while back. The whole uh, series came out of a secondary feature in a different series that ran on First Comics. Kind of an interesting collection of weirdness that went into making the comic. Um, It's famous for having been created by John Ostrander and Timothy Tremayne. Timothy Tremayne is one of my favorite comic artists. He's been around forever, and he doesn't do as much work anymore as he used to, but he did some really um, distinctive work over the years. His series Scout, and then later Scout the War Shaman, was some of my favorite comics of all time. Um, but Grimjack is where he sort of got his fame. And the thing with Grimjack is it's interdimensional. There is a city named Cynosure. And Cynosure is like, well, I guess it's like Sigil from Planescape. Um, it's a little bit like Torg or Rifts in some regards. It's a meta setting. The idea is that various dimensions impinge onto Cynosure, and at different points of time too. So it sort of moves through different dimensions, and the rules of how things work change as you go through these different sections of space, different different realities. Some of them have magic. Some of them guns don't work. And you kind of have to be aware of which realities rules are playing in control in a particular section. Most of the city, though, has guns that work and has magic that works. It's sort of a bleed over effect from the various dimensions that it impedes on. And there's a whole backstory about the world itself, but I kind of was fascinated with the idea of Cynosure. Grimjack himself is an interesting sort of anti-hero character who is a mercenary that with a heart of gold type character. He's well done, and he's interesting, and he has popped up a couple of times over the years because he's popular. He was well received, and there are still people who think pretty highly of him. And I think Cynosure has gotten in my head because I've found that I've swung back towards the meta settings are kind of cool stage. I can remember thinking Torg and Rifts and a number of others were really cool. The sort of meta setting setup. Amber is like that. Lords of Gossamer's and Shadow, the newer sort of modern inheritor of Amber, is definitely like that, where the idea is that you can travel through realities, and different realities have different rules, threats, and problems. But Cynosure, I liked the notion of this sort of hodgepodge society where you could have demons show up, you can have wizards show up, and you can have the guy show up in a spaceship that he stole in another section of space, or a different future or something, and you can have people from different times show up. It was very much the crossover setting for First Comics, and actually they had a number of crossovers with comics even outside their publisher that they brought into there. I seem to remember Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles being brought over there. Cerebus, I think, showed up at one point. A number of characters from other publishers ended up showing up in Cynosure because it makes an ideal sort of crossover point. And I've been thinking about this because um, gaming, there have been plenty of times in gaming where I thought the meta setting was kind of annoying. You know, it was all well and good when I was a teenager, but you know, I'm a grown up now and I want something a little more fleshed out and believable and interesting in that regard. Um, but I've sort of swung back the other way lately. I kind of like the gonzo setting. I kind of like the notion of, you know what, we can have talking apes hanging out with, you know, robots fighting, you know, space pirates. I'm okay with that, and I kind of like the broad canvas that it gives you. I'm not saying that this is, you know, all games must be like this from now on or anything, but I kind of like the notion more than I did for a while there. You know, post high school, early college, I thought it was a great thing, and then after that, I went through a phase where I was like, you know what, that's silly. Yeah, I don't really like that kind of thing. But, you know, I think back on some of my favorite comic storylines, and a lot of them involved cross-dimensional stuff. What was the name of it? Uh, Excalibur had a whole cross-time caper plotline where the idea was they were going from different realities where time had played out differently, and the heroes had to sort of go from reality to reality to reality and try and avoid getting chewed up by those different realities, because some of them were not nice, some of them were unfriendly, and that always stuck with me. I always liked that storyline. I like Grimjack. I like the idea that you can play with expectation, that you can play with what's gone before and give a new perspective on it. Um, and yeah, that's been what was on my mind tonight, because I've been reading some old Grimjack and at work. And, you know, I'd be interested to hear what people think of the sort of meta settings, the Rifts, the Torgs, the Lords of Gossamer and Shadow, uh, and that sort of thing. I've run games in a similar setup. I did a Champions campaign for a while there, where people were jumping from reality to reality. I've done that twice, actually. I've done that campaign idea twice. I think it's definitely got some legs, that whole idea of doing the meta setting. The problem with it, of course, is really hard to create a sort of super defined world that you've, you know, you breathe some life into. You have to breathe life into it through the individual character interactions rather than lore so much. But it can be pretty interesting for a game. And, you know, like I said, I like the Grimjack comics. I'm going to probably try and track down the rest of them, honestly, because they were really good. And Tim Tremaine. Yeah, Tim Tremaine. There needs to be more Tim Tremaine in my comics these days. I'm just saying. Guy was awesome. And I missed some of his more original work. But anyway, that's my ramble for tonight. I'll talk to you later. Bye.